First, face to face with Jamal Ratnayake.
A very good evening and welcome to this Monday's edition of Face to Face for the Newsfirst team. I am Jamal Ratnayake. Tonight, my guest is Navin Dissanayake, Governor of the Sabaragamuwa province. A very good evening to you, Mr. Dissanayake. Welcome on the show. Thank you for having me, Jamal. Mr. Dissanayake, let's get the ball rolling on today's theme. Today's theme is, are we out of the woods? We saw last week a team from the IMF led by the mission chief, Peter Brewer, arrived in Sri Lanka. He had very constructive talks with President Ranil Wickremesinghe before the president took wing to Davos for the World Economic Forum, I believe. And the IMF had expressed its positive sentiments regarding the progress that Sri Lanka had made, but it had also warned that Sri Lanka must continue this reform process. But one might say that this reform process has been a very hard pinch on the general public of Sri Lanka, Mr. Dissanayake. So let's start off tonight's program with your thoughts and your opinions on that matter.
Well, Jamal, once again, thank you for having me. As you know, I am in the United National Party. Although I'm a governor, I'm entitled to my political views and my political opinions just like everybody else in this country. I have just been named into the leadership council in the UNP, and I intend to do a very dynamic role in that.
Right.
As far as the current situation, economic situation is concerned, you're very right in your assessment that it is a very hard pinch for the Sri Lankan people. I believe in the right of scent economic policies of the UNP.
Right.
And I believe that the UNP has the DNA to get the country out of the woods.
Okay.
So therefore, I don't believe that we are out of the woods, but I believe that we have got a clear path out of the woods.
I see.
And if we go on that path, I think we can survive.
Okay.
And to prosper, you have to survive. So Lee Kuan Yew once said, before we prospered, we had to survive. So right now, I think the IMF, International Monetary Fund, look, it's not a big amount they're giving in terms of global
just
capital.
2.9 billion.
3.3.
3.3. Right.
But it's a psychological aspect of it because everybody comes on board when the IMF gives its rubber stamp. And, you have the Paris Club, you have the Western donors, you have China, you have India. So right now we are in the process of getting the final approval for our debt prepayments. We have rescheduled them.
Right.
I think the Paris Club has given its green light, and we have to work out some other processes also. Right. But can I just read out just a very brief line for you?
Yes, sir.
Because that I'm in agreement with that assessment also. This is from Sri Lanka State of the Economy 2023.
Right.
It's by independent publication, Institute of Policy Studies of Sri Lanka.
Yes.
IPS, yeah. So this is what the IPS says. This is worrying because the IMF-style macroeconomic straitjacket ignores growth for most part. Like you mentioned, having more or less exhausted the menu of policy options for economic stabilization, there will be little room for any party to divert from the IMF EFF commitments.
Yes.
In the short to medium term, any moves in that direction will plunge Sri Lanka back into an economic abyss. Very clear.
Yes.
The divergence from current policy framed within the broad concept of social market economy to drive export expansion through competitiveness and productivity growth will likely materialize in related areas. Ongoing proposals on regulatory reforms, etc., etc. So the point is that any party that tries to diverge from the IMF strict policy, will have to come up with an alternative option, which might be more bitter for the Sri Lankan people, or like a certain amount of us who think on these issues. I think once this program, now we are into the third tranche, once we hit about the fourth tranche, I think when the situation also improves more and the financials also become a bit more stronger, now our reserves are going up. Like the inflation, certainly it was double-digit inflation when Ranil Wickremesinghe took over. Now it's single-digit inflation. So like that, our policy options will also become a bit more. So I feel, like you mentioned, the hard pinch for the people can be negotiated more with the IMF. It has to be negotiated. It can't be unilateral by Sri Lanka. So negotiated means, my personal view will be, for example, to bring the pay tax from 30 to 20 and then slowly increasing it 2% every year. But certainly if you bring the pay tax down to 20, then the middle class and the professionals, they'll stop leaving the country. And that will be a huge psychological thing for Sri Lanka. So like that, there are certain things that you can't calculate. The pay tax is one, because in terms of numbers, it's, the income is going to come down, but the point is that, the amount of income taxpayers are limited in this country anyway. And you're having a huge hit because people want to leave the country. So immediately that brain drain issue has to be addressed. And of course, the president has already started giving some concessions, like the 10,000 rupee allowance, which will come into effect from January, end of January. The first 5,000, then the second 5,000 hopefully by March.
Even the debt allowance to doctors has been increased.
That's right. So like that, you can start giving concessions to people, but bear in mind that money printing can't happen under the strict IMF doctrine. And actually, we also must have that discipline not to print money, because as you know, money printing is inflationary. So I think those guidelines and strictures are good for Sri Lanka, because the main problem has been we have not been following a strict guideline for monetary and fiscal issues. So I think in a way, this crisis can be a blessing in disguise. But like you said, I talk to people a lot. They're feeling it, especially the electricity hikes. And that also I have a different point of view on that. Because if we actually deregulated the market in the 60s, 70s and 80s, and allowed other entities to give utilities, this problem wouldn't be there. There wouldn't be a single monolithic structure like the Ceylon Electricity Board and the Water Board, basically dictating prices to consumers. Because you have competition then. So I feel, because we don't have polls in Sri Lanka, scientific polls, unlike in the Western countries, we can't really actually say where we are in terms of public opinion at the moment. But there's a lot of appreciation about what President Wickremesinghe has done, that he has been able to stabilize the situation. Now the question is how to build upon it.
So you spoke about multiple things, and I want to touch on them as well. Let's first talk about the pay tax and the taxes that have come into effect since late last year. There has been a lot of allegations saying that the IRD is very slow in its tax collection, and there's a lot of tax evasion. So many people have been avoiding or evading paying their taxes, and there have been taxes that have not been collected amounting to the billions. So what sort of process, Mr. Dissanayake, should be in place to ensure that even the big fish, the ones who can afford to pay taxes but are evading it, do end up paying their taxes?
See, your national income has to be between roughly 15 to 20% of GDP. As you know that. The highest we've had was 14%. I think in the middle 90s. Certainly when the UMP was there, it was into double digits. So now we've fallen to 8% of GDP. So how are we going to maintain a state with so much of social expenses like free medicine, free education, samurdhi payments, and as you know, when we earn 100 rupees, we pay out 90 rupees in terms of pensions and salaries. So we only have 10 rupees for capital expenditure. So that is the precarious nature of public finances. I look at your question as a question of culture, because from 1948, we haven't got a culture of paying taxes. And it has never been. I mean, we only have like 1 million, if I'm right, the latest figure, 1 million tax files. Now it has been mandatory to all young adults also. Doesn't mean you have to pay taxes, but certainly you need a tin. So I basically agree with you. I mean, the IRD has been very slow, very lethargic. It has been corrupt. And like, as you know, taxes by themselves means it's not a crime, right? It's certainly not a criminal offense. It might be a white-collar crime. And I've had this experience also, like when you send your figures in, sometimes there's a bit of a negotiation going on about how much you should pay. So that kind of things happen. I mean, that's part of the tax system. But I think everybody who can pay taxes, no, that's a very big, you know, I mean, I say can, who is can? You can ask me in return. Should pay taxes because you know, Sri Lanka, if you comparative to Southeast Asia, other South Asian countries, has an excellent health system. Now, as a governor, I know, you know, when I visit hospitals, it's not bad. I mean, some of these hospitals, the doctors, certainly the younger doctors, people say all the doctors are leaving. No, they have a tremendous amount of commitment, the professionals in this country, to carry on these services. When I visit schools, the teachers, they have a tremendous amount of commitment to impart their knowledge and be good teachers. So how do you maintain a system like that without income? You need income. And certainly we are getting a lot of income, most of the income from indirect taxes. But, you know, somebody has to pay for this. So this culture has to come in to our system of paying taxes. I don't believe the IMF prescription of imposing 30% straight away. I don't believe in that. I think given the fact that we are not a high-income country, given the fact that we are a middle-income country, then you should introduce it
in a progressive way.
20% maybe, 20% is very reasonable, and then slowly as the culture brings in, increase it. Then the second limb of your question was about this, I think you're talking about these alcohol companies, you know, big companies that don't pay up, right? I mean, I think the whole list came up. I'm fully with you. I don't think anybody should be given exemptions. Certainly the larger blue chip companies pay their taxes. Like that, all the big fish has to be caught. So I'm fully in agreement with you. I think there should be a robust IRD and also an IRD with teeth. I mean, certainly IRD that can pursue and actively legally go after these people.
But you spoke about education and healthcare, Mr. Dissanayake, and yes, for decades Sri Lanka's healthcare system and also its education system have been hailed, especially because it is free of charge to everyone and anyone. But in recent times, when you think about fraud and corruption, even the healthcare system has fallen prey to it because it's very pervasive, and in recent times, we saw how the human immunoglobulin case came into light and a lot of people fell prey to it. They lost their lives and so on. So those are some of the very isolated cases that we were able to expose. But what about the fraud and corruption, the kickbacks, the commissions that take place without us knowing about it? So how important is it to eradicate corruption? How important is it to bring in a law where even if someone who has a tendency of being corrupt comes into a position of power, he or she cannot engage in corruption because the system is designed in a way that it eradicates corruption from the root?
Well, I think corruption should be rooted out of society. Now, that's a very broad statement. So there should be legal and judicial processes for that. Corruption is endemic in Sri Lanka. In my career of 20 years as a parliamentarian, I've come across more officials who are corrupt than actual politicians. You touched on the health ministry. The health ministry has always had a big problem. And I mean, my wife has been a medical administrator, and you know, the amount of corruption that happens in medical purchases is astronomical. So there has to be some system where the tenders are called online, and then even the tenders have to be opened online.
Transparency.
Some transparency like that, because this has been going on for a long time. And of course, when people feel that something is wrong in terms of tender procedures, there should be some hotline or whatever where people can give their views on it.
Right.
So I think bribe takers and both bribe givers should be punished. And question of corruption has always been in Sri Lanka, and I think people are also fed up of this. They want to change the system because of that.
Right.
They feel that because of the endemic corruption, that the country has got into this financial mess. But of course, corruption is just one issue. Macroeconomic mismanagement is the other issue. But I feel very strongly that we have to protect the health and the education sector.
Right.
So, you have to have the processes in place, transparent procedures in place to ensure that corruption is minimum in the health and the education sector.
Right. So let's talk about the politician, Navin Dissanayake, who represents the United National Party. Just the other day, I was interviewing your brother, Mayantha Dissanayake, who represents the Samagi Janapala Vege.
Yeah.
And he's very confident that at the upcoming presidential election, his presidential candidate, Sajith Premadasa, will secure power in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
And you represent the United National Party, which is governed by or led by incumbent President Ranil Wickremesinghe.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the presidential election, Mr. Dissanayake, do you believe President Ranil Wickremesinghe will have a political standing? Because we saw all the way back in 2020 at the general election, the United National Party had a very strong setback. And after the economic crisis, President Wickremesinghe took over, and then Vajra Bewardhan also came into parliament and so on. But do you believe that the people's mindsets have changed drastically over a period of about 12 to 13 months for them to vote in President Wickremesinghe once more?
Yeah, so there are a lot of multiple layers in my answer. One is, I believe that the United National Party is the single party that represents the right of centre politics in Sri Lanka. So when there are breakaway groups from the UNP, they might do well on the short term, like this, what the SJB has done. And even my father and Mr. Lalitha Thulatmudali, they broke away and they secured about 1 million votes in the first election. But then, of course, the UNF disintegrated, because the pull of the UNP was so attractive for my father, and everybody has to go back. So I believe in that very strongly. I believe there should be one right of centre main political party in Sri Lanka. The destruction of the UNP would mean the end of right of centre politics in Sri Lanka. This is my view. That's why I remained in the UNP even at the worst of times. So basically, everybody wrote the UNP off, including your TV channel. But for some miracle, some fortuitous circumstance, a right of centre political leader became the president of this country. So I believe that he has the vision and the discipline and the knowledge and the experience to take us to this path. So we are going to market that. And to come to another layer, in the last general election, yes, it's true, we fell to 256,000 votes. The fact of the matter is that Sajith Premadasa got 5.2 million votes, and then when he contested on his own through the SJB, it fell to 2.7 million votes. That's the fact. You can't take that out. So where did the balance 2 million votes go? So my contention is, and I'm very robust in this argument, I believe about 1.5 million UNPs didn't vote for the UNP or the SJB because of the division. And I believe that the original UNP can get those votes back. So we will be actively pursuing that during the next 6 months. So, and I believe that although the Pohottuwa vote has come down, the Pohottuwa vote and this UNP vote, the conservative vote in this country, will back Ranil Wickremesinghe to be the president. Now in a three-cornered presidential fight, I don't think anybody can get 50.01. But I think certainly that the president can get more votes than the other two candidates.
So I must rebut a statement that you made. You said that the TV channel that we represent wrote the president off, but we certainly didn't write him off. We were merely exposing we were just stating the facts.
No.
Like
I'm just saying that
Yes.
what the perception was at that time.
That would have been the perception of the general public. Yes,
So I mean, everybody thought.
Yes.
I would say 99.9% of the people of this country thought
Yes.
that the UNP has no future. That Ranil Wickremesinghe has no future, and that we are basically political dropouts and political failures.
Yes.
So that situation has changed.
Okay. So, but then what about the SLPP, Mr. Dissanayake? Because we know the president became the president in parliament through votes of MPs, and the majority of them represent the current government, the Sri Lanka Podujana Perumuna represents. So, will the Sri Lanka Podujana Perumuna also be a part of the UNP? Will there be a coalition when it comes to the presidential election? Just give us a bit of an insight on that.
We are talking about the word Grand Alliance, which includes the main political parties, including the SLPP, the UNP, certain Muslim parties, certain Tamil parties, breakaways from other political parties who have already started discussions with us. So we intend to propose Mr. Wickremesinghe as the candidate from this Grand Alliance.
Right. So let's talk about the other groups as well, more specifically the National People's Power, the NPP, that has also seen a surge in their one would say in the grassroots and also among social circles, although there hasn't been a scientific vote or a poll to gauge that. But a lot of people seem to be having a mindset shift, saying that the UNP or the SLPP or the SLFP have been ruling Sri Lanka for years on end since independence, but Sri Lanka is in this position because of those rulers and those parties. And they've called for an alternative, such as the NPP. What are your thoughts and opinions on that matter, Mr. Dissanayake?
Well, in a democracy, everybody has the right to vote. And, I mean, at the end of the day, the NPP or, the JVP, MPP, you can say the NPP, but the husk is the JVP. As long as the JVP is on a course of peace and democracy, I have no issues with them. But the fact of the matter is that we had two violent revolutions, 1971 and 1989, where thousands of young youths lost their lives. So JP is responsible for that. There's no question about that. However, after 1994, they have been committed to the path of democracy and peace, where there has not been any violence instigated by them. So I think we have to look at the JP in a new light. And certainly that's how I'm looking at it. There is a perception in the country that all of them are not corrupt, which is a very positive thing, because people also don't want to have the same political culture again. But what I am saying is that at the end of the day, I mean, if you look at how popular Hitler was, he had a maximum vote of 37%. So in a three-cornered equation, where basically in my perception, where this poor vote has not evaporated that much, I feel that the JP, how can I say, the managed popularity is artificial. But that's to be seen. I mean, because I have, most often than not, I have been correct, but I have been wrong also. I'm humble to accept that. So because there's a lack of actual polling, we don't know exactly how much the JP is hitting at the moment. So, but anyway, at the end of the day, I think JP has to, now they have, I think, about 2 months ago, they said they're committed to the IMF program. So do they really mean that? Right? Or what is the economic experiment? Okay, I mean, you can cut corruption. You might, by cutting corruption completely, you might say 5% of GDP, which is a lot. But then what about the balance? What is the vision for the JVP? Is it through the current market mechanism? That's what I want to know. How are they going to change the current market mechanism? Land ownership, for example, are they going to take over all lands of the state? because normally Marxist communist systems, they take over land. Then free enterprise.
Right.
Can people actually own a private enterprise and run? I mean, what is the mechanism for that? So what are the economic changes that the JP is going to bring? I think there's a lot of gray areas in that, and they have to explain that to the people. So at the end of the day, look, I mean, we went on a very strong platform and said not to bring Gotabaya in. Right?
Yes.
And then we were very aggressive on that, and we sold our candidate in 2019 very aggressively.
Yes.
People didn't buy that for so many reasons. Maybe the security reason was one after the Eastern attacks.
Yes.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, the people are kings. Right? They decide. That depends on our campaign, the SJB campaign and the NPP campaign.
Yes.
So which campaign has got that ability to attract people? Certainly I can say that Ranil Wickremesinghe has the experience. He's done a lot of campaigns, victorious campaigns, and also campaigns that he has lost. But my experience, and I've been a critic of Ranil Wickremesinghe within the party, my experience of him is that he is a very steady guy, he's a very stable guy, and he is determined to get Sri Lanka out of these woods.
Right. Yeah. So your ultimate prognosis is, may the best man win, but the man that you are backing has a better chance of winning.
The man that wins also must be a strong Democrat. He must adhere to democratic rules, and he must not go on a violent path. Now there is a perception in Sri Lanka about this financial crisis. I have seen some politicians, mainly Pohuttu politicians, trying to defend their record.
Right.
I like to answer them and tell you about this. The main issue was the international sovereign bonds.
Okay.
How we raised this money. Now we started using the financial markets in 2007. This is the dark green one.
Yes.
This is the first time in 2007. Right? Then we went on, that line kept on increasing till 2014. You can see that.
Yes.
So it was actually the former governor, Mr. Niwat Kaprar, who started using this mechanism of international sovereign bonds. Till then, nothing. Look at that. Nothing.
Yes.
Till then, nothing.
Right.
So I have a little theory on this. I think they started using this for the third term.
Okay.
To push Mahinda through the third term. They wanted all this money to do the roads and all this other development work, ports and all these things, popular vote. This was put on actually consumption, not on investment, this money. So it's called, in Sinhala we call it paribojana.
Yes.
Right? And then of course we also did it, because we had to pay this back. Right? So it was a vicious cycle. So once the COVID came and all these other issues came, tourism was hit, that cycle was broken. So then we couldn't keep up our payments.
Paying back, yes.
So that's what happened. But now Mangala Samarveera, when he left the finance ministry, he actually, we call it Ataritta. There was a
surplus.
There was an accumulation, you know. And for the first time after 53 years, there was a surplus. So if the Gotabaya government had gone to the IMF straight away, we could have got over these issues without any problem. But they didn't do that. So I just wanted to make that clear, that why this economic collapse happened, it was because of the international sovereign bonds that we started taking in 2007.
Right.
So now that we have to understand the fundamentals of this game and somehow reschedule these loans and start accumulating income to pay it back.
So it's very analytical prognosis by Governor of the Sabaragamu province, Navin Dissanayake. Once again, thank you very much for joining me and bringing some very insightful conversations and bringing me data to our viewers and me as well. That's the way it was on Face to Face for tonight. Take care and have yourselves a great Monday night.